Ladies and gentlemen, James Lane here, and I'm a father. Are you a parent? Do you have children? Well, I think as a father, as a parent, it's my responsibility to know about what's happening in regard to the plague of sex offenders that run across this country, ladies and gentlemen. It is a plague, I'm telling you. So I would think that you, as a parent, or somebody who might know parents or be associated with parents or have adult children that have children of their own, you would be concerned with what's happening in regard to sex offenders as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been quite obvious for some time that Republicans are treated like secondhand citizens in this country, and that sex offenders are treated far better. I'm going to read some stuff that came out of California, some stuff that came out of Michigan. I'm going to shock you. I'm going to let you know what's going on in regard to sex offenders in these areas, and I'm going to reveal something that when you search it will shock you to the core. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, James Lane here. How you guys doing? I hope you enjoyed, or if you haven't yet, are in the process of enjoying, or are getting ready to enjoy the 3.5 hour podcast that I did going through, all right, ladies and gentlemen, going through Edward Foley's paper on a disputed presidential election, this disputed election that he wrote in 2019. Now, if that is something you're interested, if you'd love to hear about that 3.5 hour deep dive, the one that's going to arm you with all the facts, I'll make sure that there is a link in a little box at the end if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, if you're watching somewhere else, just go back an episode or two. It's not far from this one, ladies and gentlemen, but it is an important listen, an important watch. Folks, you need to know this info because it's going to help you understand exactly where we're going to be on January 20th. So with that said, like I said in the introduction, I'm a dad. I've got daughters. There's nothing I love more than my children. And the last thing I want to think about are sex offenders. But as a father, that's something that concerns me. That's something I have to worry about. All right. And then we have states across this country that release these people, that let them back into our populations, that don't inform us anything, that don't require them to do anything, that just allow them to reoffend and reoffend. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't find there to be a path of rehabilitation for sex offenders. I feel like if you cross that line once, I don't care if you're 17 years old, you're done. You're done. You're lucky we don't put you in a pit. You're lucky this isn't, years ago and they just take you out behind a building and shoot you. I think in most, I'll make this is going to be a very bold statement. Maybe for most, if not all sex offenders, they should be doing that. Do we really ask yourself this? Do we really want these people in our society? We pay tax money to feed and clothe people that molest little girls and boys. We pay that out of our paychecks, my blue-collar patriot friends. We pay for their life. For their life, ladies and gentlemen, we pay for it. The food that they eat comes out of our tax money, while some of us right now can't even afford meals because of the tyrannical lockdowns that the same governments that support these sex offenders are imposing upon their citizens. And that's exactly where we're going to start. We're going to start in one state where a dictator rules with an iron fist. We're going to start with California, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to follow a flow in this little segment here. We're going to go through a couple articles, and I'm going to show you something very important, and you're going to want to know whether you're a father, whether you're a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a brother or sister. When I show you this at the end, you're going to want to show everybody you see, because it's something I stumbled upon just searching for information to do this episode. It ended up being the end of this segment, this episode here, because it's so shocking. It's absolutely shocking. So stay tuned for that. If you're watching, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, watching on Rumble, hit the subscribe. Well, you're not going to be watching this on Rumble because it's, well, actually, they did take my last video. Listen, I'm having an issue with Rumble, ladies and gentlemen. Rumble is like approving parts of my videos. They're not looking at things for weeks at a time. So trust me, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little edgy with how Rumble is actually working. They're supposed to be competing with YouTube, and yet I find myself on YouTube. I don't want to be on YouTube. If you're listening to me, Rumble, I don't want to be on YouTube, okay? I want to be on Rumble. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, hit the like button, smash the like button, like, please. That combination, hitting the like button, leaving a comment, that moves us up the invisible YouTube rankings as best as it can. Our distribution's been horribly cut there, so we get little trickles. So really, it's word of mouth, and we depend on that from you. But share, like, comment, please. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us that 5-star rating. Leave a written review. It helps us move up the rankings there as well. More patriots get to hear about the American Reveille, join the American Reveille movement, arm themselves with the knowledge they need to wake people up. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you. I thank you so much for the ratings, reviews, the shares, the likes, the subscriptions, the notifications. Thank you. Let's get to it. California Supreme Court. This is from coming right out of the Daily Wire. California Supreme Court rules thousands. I said that 3 times. That wasn't a mistake. Of sex offenders are eligible for early release. Watch out, parents. Watch out. Let's read. On Monday, the California Supreme Court ruled that thousands of inmates convicted of non-forcible sex crimes, all sex crimes, if you're on the sex offender list, I understand, like 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old girlfriend, kid just, listen, I grew up, all right, and saw this actually happen where we, had a friend who was a girl and she was 17 and her boyfriend turned 18 and the parents never liked this kid. All right, I'm being honest. The parents never liked this kid. And so as soon as he turned 18, they called the cops on him. This kid went on the sex offender list for life. He was with this girl for 2 years. He was 16 when she was, 17 when she was 16, 18 when she was 17. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's kind of an iffy area. But what I'm getting at is these sex offenders, the people touching kids, scoping out schools, doing screwed up stuff, playing around where they shouldn't be playing around. Lucky that they're not dead from the parent figuring it out. That's the sex offender that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the 17-year-old, boyfriend, the 18-year-old girlfriend whose crazy parents get the cops called. I don't know. What I'm getting at, though, is trying to define what a sex offender is. And if you're a parent like me, then the images in your mind are probably matching mine. So you should be on the same wavelength as me and understand what I'm talking about, all right? This initiative, all right, called Proposition 57. Anybody remember that? Does it ring a bell? I lived in California. I was in the military still when I was in California. And I remember when Prop 57 started floating around. Yeah, that was around 2016. I believe it was 4 years ago that started coming around. Let me see. The initiative called Prop 57 was written by then Governor Jerry Brown. All right. Non-forcible sex crimes. This was a 4-year ago ballot measure that was overwhelmingly approved by voters. Go figure. By the way, California is sending like 80% of Warnock and Ossoff or whatever their names are, those Senate Democrat Georgia candidates for the runoff. Like 80% of the money, millions of dollars, it's all coming from California. What sick, twisted fiends inhabit that land, that disgusting, disparaging, tarnished land, that dead soil. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a Republican and you live in California, you need to tell your local sheriff's office there to take a stand against this type of stuff, or you're leaving, or it's time to go. I think people are evacuating California anyway, ladies and gentlemen. I say we build a giant border wall around California, Oregon, and dare I say, half of Washington state. I'm sorry. And just let the criminals have it. Let the Democrat criminals have it. They can have it. And all of the other Democrats can move into these areas, and they can all have a sex offender, gangland party for themselves. We don't want to be involved in this crap. We don't. Do you? Do you want your kids to walk to school while you're worrying about this shit? Sorry for the language. It slipped out. I am wearing my salty sailor shirt, so the curse word may come out here or there. The initiative, all right, Prop 57, written by Governor Jerry Brown, passed by nearly 2/3 of the electorate, was crafted to reduce the state's prison population, saying any person found guilty of nonviolent felony offense would be eligible for early parole. Brown said it was never intended to cover sex offenders. However, the original language did not exempt them from consideration. I wonder why they didn't put that in there. Lower appeal courts had ruled that nonviolent sex offenders could not be excluded, and the High Court affirmed those rulings. By the way, guys, if you really want to know where the left, where Democrats, where the leftist intellectuals stand on this type of crap, just look up TED Talk. Sex offender or TED Talk pedophiles, something like that. There's an actual TED Talk type thing out there where these lefties, highly respected lefties apparently, they actually, this one person and the supporters, they're pushing for pedophiles. Are you ready for this? To become a protected class like LGBTQP for pedophiles. They can't help it, so they need love and hugs. No, they don't. The things that they need, if I said on this podcast, would get me arrested because I live in a state that likes to protect these assholes. I don't think they should have any protection whatsoever. Do you? If you're watching this still, I'm sure you're agreeing with me that they shouldn't have that protection, all right? Lower appeals courts ruled these nonviolent sex offenders couldn't be excluded. Do you hear what that meant, what that means, what they're saying? Since the original language didn't exempt them from consideration of this early parole, since no one thought, or maybe they did think, since no one thought to write in, pedophiles, sex offenders, people that touch kids, they shouldn't get early parole. The lower court decided that nonviolent sex offenders couldn't be excluded from early parole. And when this went up to the high Supreme Court of California, they agreed, we need to be nicer to sex offenders. Wow. Quote, the initiative's languages, all right, the language provides no indication that the voters intended to allow the Corrections Department to create a wholesale exclusion from parole consideration just based on an inmate's sex offense convictions when the inmate was convicted of a nonviolent felony, wrote Chief Justice Tanny Cantil Sakwai in the court's 7-0 decision. They voted 7-0 to allow sex offenders back onto your streets. If you live in California and you don't like sex offenders, this is what your high courts are voting for. This is what your elected officials are voting for. This is what your mayors and your governor is voting for, is pushing down your throats and onto your damn children. Wake up. Wake up, ladies and gentlemen. According to the AP, the ballot measure allows officials to consider paroling inmates convicted of nonviolent crimes after they've served their basic sentence, and therefore they've completed sometimes lengthy additional terms for enhancements like using a gun maybe, or having prior criminal convictions, or being involved in a street gang. The outlet reported that California law classifies sex crimes like rape, sodomy, and continuous sexual abuse of a child. It's hard to even say that in a sentence. It's horrible. As violent offenses, but not pimping, incest, indecent exposure, or possessing child porn. Possessing child porn isn't a violent offense, though creating the child porn is a violent offense, regardless of how you put it. And getting that child porn means you're creating demand for the violent offense, you dumb sons of God. I hate California. I really do. Prosecutors had warned voters before Prop 57's passage that the proposal was so sloppily and poorly drafted it would wreak havoc on public safety. And damn right it does. Inmates convicted of nonviolent sex crimes that are nonviolent according to who? I think all sex crimes are violent. Horrible. My gosh, the Supreme Court they ruled that these people, look, this came out in the San Francisco Chronicle, of course. That's why they're so nice to these people. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of sex offenders in California to 7-0, 7-0, ladies and gentlemen, a 7-0 decision. Think about that. As the San Francisco Chronicle reports, the CDCR prohibited the board from considering early release for inmates serving time for a conviction that required registration as a sex offender. And on Monday, the state's high court ruled unanimously that the department's regulations were unauthorized by Prop 57. As of 2018, the state rules barred 4,400 inmates, 4,400 sex offenders from being considered for early parole. They're saying that was unfair. The spokesperson told the Chronicle that Monday's ruling does not mean that the sex offenders will automatically be released into the community, adding that the parole board has to assess their case factors individually. You really think they're going to do that, right? In California, ask yourself, in San Francisco, in San Diego, in Los Angeles, the cesspool that Los Angeles has become, do you really think they're going to assess these individually? Do you think they even have the time? Do you think they even care? These people help push the Democrats' agenda, plain and simple. All right? It says they'll assess the case factors individually, including whether they continue to propose a public safety risk. Oh, they're experts now, apparently. Folks, they're going to let these people out, and they're going to reoffend and harm our children. Who's coming to save us then? Who's coming? Nobody's coming, ladies and gentlemen. So, I think that when you catch one of these sex offenders, when you find one of these people and they're prowling about, I think that everybody needs to know about it. I think that posts need to be made. You know how they have Amber Alerts? I think we should start doing pedophile alerts. I think we should start doing sex offender alerts. Have that go out. And I'm talking make clear regulations to what that is. All right. You can't just, you accidentally kiss someone on a freaking date. I'm sorry, folks. Cancel culture in PC world is ridiculous. Screw off. Stuff happens. Not everything's abuse between a man and a woman and a woman and a man. All right. But there is a clear definition of what sexual abuse to a minor is. There is a clear definition of what stalking a child is. Trying to molest a child is. We know what that is, ladies and gentlemen. It's obvious. Those people need to be known. They need to be doxxed. I don't give a crap. When you touch a child, you lose your rights as a human being. So I don't give a crap if anybody goes, oh, they shouldn't dox these people. It's so wrong. It's wrong to dox people. These people aren't people. Ask yourself, do you consider sexual offenders, sexual predators, child molesters, child rapists, do you consider these people humans? These are scum-sucking, bottom-dwelling demons, claw-footed, hooved, winged, horned serpents of Satan, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to be a tad dramatic, but it's the truth. That's what evil is. All right? Like I said before, there are cases. All right? There are cases out there. Kids, dating for 3 years. One of them turns 18. The other one's 17 and a half. The parents are nuts. Things like that happen. I've seen it myself. So we need to have clear regulations. But these people, screw these people. A CDCR spokesperson told the Chronicle Monday's ruling doesn't mean that the sex offenders will automatically come out. No, they'll just trickle out so that they can molest our children, once a month. We'll get a new one every month that can come try to molest our children. See what happens then, government. See what happens then when the patriots catch wind of this crap. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Do you really think people vote Do you really think the vote of the people counts in California? I lived in California. It is a cesspool in those major cities, but all of those major cities are surrounded by nothing but red. Folks, just like Washington State with the mail-in ballots, the Oregon state voting issues, the California voting issues, I really believe that if the mail-in ballot was taken away, if we actually had fair, free elections in these states, if the machine counting wasn't in place, there'd be a whole lot more red than people realize. And I'm up here in Washington State. Do you really think Inslee won? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, come on. Sacramento attorney Janice Bellucci, who is also the executive director of the Alliance for Constitutional Sex Offense Laws, argued the case. She called the decision a significant victory for incarcerated people convicted of sex crimes. Opponents of Prop 57 raised virtually no money to fight the measure in 2016, while top contributors, Democrat contributors obviously, poured more than $11.8 million into the winning campaign. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that Democrats want us to just be okay with them? They want us to just bow to their will. They're the ones that are paying sex offenders. They're donating. Look how much they're donating to Georgia, like we said earlier. Warnock ran a camp where a child wet themselves, and he oversaw it while they poured urine on this child, berated this child, made him lie in his own piss. Folks, I've been through child abuse myself, and I've had similar things happen to me. And I really don't tell many people about that. I'm not going to get into the story, but I can tell you that those are demons, and your Democrat neighbors are paying them. They're paying the demons. These donors included George Soros's Open Society Policy Center. That should tell you something. The Democratic Party, the California Democratic Party. Oh, really? The billionaire philanthropist, Tom Steyer, who then went on to fund a drive advocating for the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. Don't you see the patterns here, ladies and gentlemen? Trump is the only one standing in the way of these people molesting children, of these disgusting, wealthy Democrats and these George Soros funded worldwide oligarchs, these Democrats, these radical Democrats. He's the only one standing in the way of their child trafficking sex pipeline, apparently. All right. And YouTube, you can't take this off. I'm reading a damn article here. I'm going through it. I'm showing you how much money the Democrats raised to keep sex offenders from staying in jail. That's a fact. It's right there. Don't pull down this video. Don't you dare. All right, folks, this is important. You have to understand what the Democrats are doing. And this isn't new. All right. If you thought it was over with this, it's not, because this isn't new. We can keep going. Look at this. This is from September 12th, 2020. This article previous, this was from today, actually, December 28th. So, and if you're watching this on the 29th, I recorded this in the ass crack of dawn, somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m. So it's somewhere in between the 28th and the 29th right now. So just deal with that. Figure out the time on yourself. California governor signs bill changing sex offender law. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is from September 12th. And you remember when they were trying to figure out what was what, when they were trying to figure out what constituted sex with a minor, this special rule that they put in place, that they were saying they were protecting the LGBT community, but in fact, they were putting in guidelines and rules for how to properly molest children. California is a disgusting place, and Gavin Newsom should go to hell. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a law that would give judges a say on whether to list someone as a sex offender for having oral or anal sex with a minor. So if it's in the mouth or if it's in the butt, I hate to say it like that. It's horrible to say like that. I'm sorry, but you have to feel that pain in your ear and your head and your heart to be pissed off, to feel the anger that I feel. All right? It's ridiculous. So a judge, a crooked Democrat biased judge, can decide whether or not somebody should go on the sex offender list. They get to decide that, yeah, then that might help out the people I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, the 17 and 18-year-old or whatever, but it opens up an entirely new can of worms. You see, I don't understand why they can't just draft bills and make these resolutions with clear and concise language. They design them to screw them later. They design them to be able to go in and edit them, alter them, argue them in court, have gray areas and loopholes so that they can't have anything actually legally binding. It's how these people run their states like tyrants. It's horrible. It's horrible. It allows for massive corruption, ladies and gentlemen. The bill would expand the discretion currently granted judges in statutory rape cases and was promoted as bringing fairness under the law to LGBTQ defendants. That's exactly what I just said. Remember, this is from September, just a couple of months ago, ladies and gentlemen. If you remember hearing about it, it was all over the news and then just disappeared. It just disappeared as quick as it came about. The current law, in place for decades, permits judges to decide whether a man should be placed on California's offender registry if he had voluntary intercourse with someone 14 to 17 years old and was no more than 10 years older than the person. See, there's a lot of people that go by that and stuff, and I'm sorry, I might be from some really trashy neighborhoods, but I understand a 16-year-old dating a 17-year-old and that 17-year-old turning 18, right? I'm not going to be okay with my 15-year-old screwing a 20-year-old. I'm sorry. And I don't care what world you live in, lefties, if you're watching this. But as a father, that's what I believe. And that's how it works with me in my house. So you do what you want, but don't you infringe upon my liberty. This is infringing upon millions of conservatives, Republicans, right-wingers, libertarians. This is infringing upon their liberty. The bill was introduced by State Senator Scott Wiener, a San Francisco Democrat. We all know about him. The law ends discrimination by treating LGBTQ young people the exact same way the straight young people have been treated since 1944. Wiener said in a statement, adding, "Today, California took yet another step towards an equitable society." See, they've been talking about this socialist equity crap for a long time now. Equity California. Oh, look, they even have a company, a nonprofit civil rights group that co-sponsored the bill with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, also applauded Newsom's signing. If we want California for all, then we need a justice system that treats all Californians fairly and equally, regardless of who they are, what they look like, and whom they love. And apparently, to California, who they love includes children. It includes our children. Who's going to save our children, ladies and gentlemen? Who's coming to help us? Who's helping us with this? These Democrats don't care about your children. All they care about is their power. And they're trying to get power, attain this power, keep this power by destroying our class structure. The bill passed the Assembly and Senate on split votes, with some members objecting to what they saw as an easing of punishments against those who have sex with minors. Quote, "I cannot in my mind as a mother understand how sex between a 24-year-old and a 14-year-old could ever be consensual. How it could ever not be a registrable offense." All right. Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, Democrat from San Diego, said this before the bill's passage. This is a Democrat that was against this, all right? Now, this is an article that is reported from U.S. News coming out of the AP, so you know it is left-wing skewed, all right? It's left-wing skewed, so the next line says, "Online critics have falsely blasted the measure as legalizing pedophilia." And I agree with that. I know most of you agree with that, all right? The problem is that they believe that 14-year-old children should have the right to vote and have the right to have sex with whoever they want. That is not how it works in the United States of America. That's not how it'll ever work in the United States of America. And California can go secede and become its own piece of crap third world nation if it would like. And don't get offended, third world nations out there. There's plenty of nice and good third world nations, but there's a lot of piece of crap ones too. You know it. There's no single actual immigrant that's listening to me say that doesn't agree with me. I want you to know that the only people that disagree with that statement that I just made about third world countries are white left-wing babies. And I'm not talking about babies as in children. I'm talking about adult babies, ones that might as well be wearing diapers and saying goo goo gaga. The bill was supported, I'm reading again, by civil rights groups as well as the California District Attorneys Association and California Police Chiefs Association. Look, of course, all of these agencies are supporting it. California is crooked and twisted and heinous and horrible and doesn't care if your child is molested. Plain and simple. Why the hell would anybody ever want to stay in a Democrat-run city in California? So I told you about the Supreme Court ruling in California the other day. I told you about something that happened in September in California, and it just gets worse. These freaking Democrats don't care about our kids. Look at this. This is coming out of Michigan, all right? This is from December 20th. Lawmakers change sex offender registry rules. The ACLU opposes. This is by Liz Nichols, all right? Lansing, Michigan. The legislature approved changes last week to Michigan's sex offender registry after federal courts declared the current policy unconstitutional. The new rules, approved by the Senate on Wednesday, would change aspects of registering and eliminating bans on living or being within 1,000 feet of schools. It would also give an offender 7 days to rest. So you get a period, you get 7, you get a week. Okay, I know you just horribly did some bad stuff to this kid, but we'll give you a week off to think about it before you register. And then while you're doing that, it's okay. Go smoke that cigarette next to that elementary school over there. What is wrong with you, Michigan? U.S. District Judge Robert Cleland. You notice how I just went right back to the article? I have no more words after that. It's ridiculous. U.S. District Judge Robert Cleland had ruled that some changes in the current registry law made in the last 2 decades were too vague or impossible to enforce and therefore unconstitutional. A federal appeals court. You know, it's pretty funny, by the way. It's easy for a judge in these states. All right, we're talking about freaking the states that have these disputes right now, these dueling electors right now, right? We can get a damn state court to give rights to sex offenders, but we can't get them to look at election fraud. Go figure. You really think these judges are making fair rulings? These judges are traitors, ladies and gentlemen, traitors. A federal appeals court in 2016 said Michigan was treating people as moral lepers by imposing excessive restrictions. I'm going to make another bold statement, all right? I might as well put it on letterhead from American Reveille LLC and send it out to the constituents of the United States. If you do something inappropriate to a child, even if it's a minor thing, even if it's little, even if you never got to complete the act or whatever, the cops got you beforehand, the dad beat your ass and knocked all your teeth out, whatever. If you do something to a child, you are a moral leopard. All right? You are a moral leper. Plain and simple. You are subhuman. You don't belong in our society. If it was up to me, I'd deport you to some island somewhere. You know what? Epstein's dead, right? We might as well deport all the pedophiles to Pedo Island. And then when they run out of space and food, they can just eat each other. I think that's a pretty good fate. I think that's great. You know, we could do like a Hunger Games type thing or like a reality TV show, like a fight to the death thing. Survive Pedo Island and just send all of the sex offenders there. I don't give a crap what you did. Send them there. Let them fight to the death. Mortal Kombat. I don't give a crap how you do it. Give them fists, spears, create, you know, like the game Mousetrap, weird contraptions that people can get crushed under. Do it however you want. But I think that that's a great way to bring peace to the people that horribly were abused on that island by sending people that abuse people to that island and letting them live out a hell on earth. Some Old Testament eye for an eye shit. I don't care about these people. They're not people to me. You have to look in the mirror and ask yourself if people that molest children are people to you. I'm sorry. I've enough times in this video gone over what I differentiate, all right, as a sex offender and not a sex offender. So if you didn't hear it, just rewind. All right. Obviously, we don't have rewind anymore. I'm dating myself. This isn't a VHS tape, but just deal with it. All right. Go back a couple seconds and find out what I had to say, because there is a difference, in my opinion. But the sexual molesters out there, the sexual predators, the child traffickers, the people that stalk children, hurt children, touch children, watch your kids through your window and touch themselves, those creeps, those are moral lepers. Send them to Epstein Island. Put a little, like, make it like an Alcatraz, like a free-for-all, escape from New York, Alcatraz type of scenario with sex offenders. We'll put cameras everywhere hidden, and we'll have the #1 hit show for the next 1,000 years. Survive Pedo Island. Ugh. In 2006, the state prohibited those on the registry from living or loitering within 1,000 feet of school property. In 2011, the state approved a requirement for registrants to immediately report changes in addresses, vehicles, and phone numbers. This judge, this Cleland, he said that lawmakers had to change the law this year in order to have an enforceable registry. Since the judge's February decision, officers were advised not to take enforcement action for certain violations involving the registry and school safety zones. Do you understand that? The Michigan State Police were told, do not enforce the law if a sex offender is near a school. The legislation would require offenders to report changes in phone numbers and vehicles to authorities. Those convicted after July 1st, 2011 would be required to report all online communication or social media handles, which would be listed on the registry. They'd be required to just let us know. Let us know if you're online, where all of our kids are. I don't know if you've ever seen a kid, but they do this half the day. Hey, Jimmy, huh? Hey, Jimmy, what are you doing, huh? Hey, Sally, pay attention. We're having dinner. Get off your phone, huh? That's what kids are doing. That's where the sexual predators are, ladies and gentlemen. That is where the sexual predators are. Horrible. Just absolutely horrible. The legislation required what I just said, all right? The social media handles, they'd be required. Do you really think they're telling all the social media handles, by the way, to the police? Come on. The American Civil Liberties Union of Michigan, which sued over the registry, is urging Governor Gretchen Whitmer, oh great, to veto the legislation. The ACLU said it gives people on the registry a one-size-fits-all consequence to a wide variety of charges and fails to support survivors of sexual violence. Yeah, they're too concerned about the rights of the sexual predators than they are of the victims, ladies and gentlemen. Horrible, absolutely horrible. Those convicted of crimes typically serve a sentence and move toward a more productive life, said ACLU attorney Miriam Ackerman, but those on the registry, she said, are demonized for life. In 2019, Michigan had the 4th highest number of registered sex offenders in the U.S. at 40,367, according to safehome.org. The ACLU estimates that number increased to 44,000 this year. I don't give a shit if they're demonized for life. They're lucky they're alive. I said it out loud. Now deal with it. Sorry, not sorry. Ackerman said the registry's counterproductive and fails to prevent repeat offenses. Yeah, because they're sick. They're sick individuals that don't belong in society. The registry isn't there to prevent it. It's there to let us know that they're living 2 streets over and to make sure I have bullets if they're looking through the window and trying to touch my kid. That's what the registry's for, you dumbass. Quote, what this bill does is it supports a failed policy, and that takes the pain of survivors and exploits that pain to come with policies that we know don't work, that actually make us less safe rather than doing the hard work, the real work of investing in prevention programs and services that actually make a difference. We can do prevention, but I think we also need a list. We also need, a big pit so we can, this is Sparta! Kick them into this pit. and let them fall. And yeah, I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I don't give a crap. I'm not wearing jeans in my own studio at like 2 a.m. Deal with it. You got to see my hairy leg. Joe Biden likes to talk about that, by the way. What this bill does is it supports a failed policy. Look, they are failing. They're failing at everything. But you're going to take away the registry? You're going to let people go within 1,000 feet of schools? You're going to give them 7 days to report? It should be immediately. It should be not even 24 hours. Whatever this is trying to tell us, whatever convoluted article that goes back and forth, because it's coming from the AP, so they have to support these people, yet not support these people somehow. It's a convoluted article. It's all ridiculous. This is ridiculous. What Newsom did here is ridiculous. What California Supreme Court did here is ridiculous. And when I said here, for those listening, I'm talking about the early release of sex offenders. I'm talking about the different definitions of what constitutes and how a judge in California can make that decision. I'm talking about Michigan. And then finally, folks, I wanted to bring you to something that really disturbed me. And this is why I decided to make you aware of this, because I saw the one article and I thought, maybe I should research. So I researched. I came across this California stuff. I came across this Michigan stuff. I figured we're all parents. We're fighting this good fight. We're supporting the president. We're here. We're ready. We're doing everything we can in our power to be good digital soldiers and to hold the line, to fight back, to fight the tyranny. And yet at the same time, all this sex offender stuff is being swept under the rug. It's been swept under the rug for decades. Now, we know Trump's been fighting it, but the amount of sex offenders and sex offender news that's out there is stunning. So what I did when I was researching this is it was simple. I just typed in sex offender news on DuckDuckGo and I hit news, not on Google, on DuckDuckGo, the one that's not all censored up by Google. And we just started seeing these articles. I'm not going to read all the articles. We're going to play the lefty game and just look at headlines. Repeat sex offender who urged girlfriend to molest her sons and film it. He can't beat his decades-long jail term. Oh, he can't get out of jail. Screw him. That's from 19 hours ago, folks. 4 minutes ago, non-forcible sex crimes offenders are eligible now for early parole. That's from the Houston Chronicle. Oh, you mean the article I just read about finally trickled down to the Houston Chronicle. Excuse me. The sex offender, all right, here, received $12,000 of unemployment benefits from prison. All right. Look, sex offender to be released in Marathon County. Sex offender sent to prison for trying to meet minor for sex in Roscommon. All right. Sex offender accused of inappropriate contact with child. Look at these people's faces. Convicted sex offender, accomplice charged in Yolo County EDD fraud case. Jailed Northern California sex offender was charged with receiving thousands. There's another case of prisoners getting unemployment. Sex offenders, folks, child molesters. Horrible. Tip leads detectives to naked recordings of a child on this sex offender's electronics. This is from a week ago. 48-year-old Daniel Sweeney. Naked videos, pictures of a child. Convicted sex offender accused of receiving unemployment benefits. We talked about one of those. Police. Portsmouth sex offender who violated probation arrested after abduction and rape. That's 5 days ago. ACLU. We talked about that. That's Michigan. North Reading PD to notify community of a level 3 sex offender. That's a week ago. Convicted sex offender. Look at this guy's face. These people look like space aliens, by the way. Look at this. Look at this guy. I saw him on Men in Black. Convicted sex offender, Francisco Javier Reyes, wanted by El Paso County Sheriff's Office. 10 days ago, folks, FBI seeks potential victims of alleged sex offender arrested in La Mesa, California. 10 days ago, folks. Level 3 sex offender, Rochester, a homeless guy. 5 days ago, folks, man arrested on Metrolink, charged with failure to register as a sex offender, police say. 9 days ago. 9 days ago. This is just within a week. This is like a week plus a few business days. Well, this is a good one. Floyd County sex offender dies in prison. I won't argue with that. Choctaw County homicide victim was a registered sex offender. Not worried about that either. Sex offender from Batavia. I don't even know what that is. Indicted by the feds. Thousands of child porn images found. That's 6 days ago, folks. Aggressive panhandling report leads to an unregistered sex offender arrest. Look at his face. All of these guys have the same eyes. Look at their eyes. Look at their eyes. Look at his eyes. Look at the evil in his eyes. You can tell. You can tell these people. Sex offender registration challenged by Larksville man. Panhandler, we saw that. Lawmakers changed that. I'm not going to keep going through. Look, I just went through one page. It's all within 10 days. All over the country. All right? These people are everywhere, and California, Michigan, and other states want to give them rights. So I have a question for you. I have an important question for you, and I want you to quietly ask yourself before you ask anybody else. Why is it that the left, the Democrat Party, the government officials, the people that are supposed to represent we the people, why is it that they hate us? Why is it that they believe that sex offenders and child molesters should have more rights, more privilege, and more respect than people on the right, than Republicans, than libertarians, than independents that lean on the right? Why? Conservatives, why? Traditionalists, why? Why are they better? Why are they better than us? That's not right. You're supposed to protect our children. But to me, this looks like you're militarizing sexual predators to attack our children. Prove me wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that. Well, I mean, you're not going to enjoy it. It was about these horrible, horrible, disgusting creatures. But I mean, enjoyed the fact that I'm getting you the information in this way. That's what I'm trying to talk about. It's really difficult for people to take the time that we take here to go through all this stuff. So I try to put it together for you in a way that's not going to be dry, that's going to be entertaining, that's still going to be factual, but that's also going to really push this point home. I pour my heart, my soul, my personality into it. I leave nothing off the table. So I really do appreciate you watching this. I do. I appreciate you listening to it if you're not watching to it, if you're just listening to it. But if you're watching it, you also are listening to it. Unless, of course, you're hearing impaired, which I also have CC for most of my stuff anyway. So good on the American Reveille for doing that. Anyway, sorry. It's the middle of the morning, 2-something in the morning here. I'm going to get this edited. I'm going to get this out to you. I'm getting a little tired, so I rambled just a little bit there. Do me a favor, all right? This is what I was trying to get at. If you appreciate what we're doing, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Leave us a comment. Hit the like button. Like. The more you like, the more we can justify to YouTube to stop censoring our crap and actually put it out there to people. I know that a lot of people really love what we're doing, and we want to keep waking people up, keep making these people happy that are here watching what we're doing, and not only making them happy, but arming them with the facts, the knowledge that they need to keep waking up their brothers and sisters. This truly is an American Reveille. It's an American Reveille movement. And we're waking up across the nation, across the world, dare I say. So hit the like button, leave a comment, notification bell, subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, 5-star rating. Come on. You know this is good. You know you like it. You know you want to give me that 5-star rating. Give me that 5-star rating. Leave a review. Even if you want to give me a 4-star rating or a 3-star rating, be honest. But no, seriously, don't do that. Give me a 5-star rating. Come on. Don't be a jackass. 5-star rating. Leave a review. Let me know what you thought. Let me know how you feel about the American Reveille podcast and everything we're doing. If you have any feedback, www.americanreveille.com. You can fill out the contact form. Or you can just email me directly. Questions, comments. If there's anything you feel you can offer to help, any type of profession that you happen to be a master of, or even an intermediate or entry-level person in that you feel you have services you could offer to us, please let me know. Send me an email, jameslane@americanreveille.com. I pretty much eventually get back to everybody. I'm saying pretty much because I get death threats sometimes, and I do my best not to get back to them. I just save those in case I ever have to give them to the police. So do me that favor, 5-star rating there. And if you can find it in your heart, if you feel like we did an excellent job, if you feel like we went above and beyond, you can always go to the www.americanreveille.com website. That's Reveille. And you can always give us a little bit of a donation. We appreciate it. None of it ever goes in my pocket. It all gets reinvested in the American Reveille. I keep your email, and I make sure to get you something that shows you what we did with that money. So thank you again very much. I appreciate this. I hope this gives you some insight about this plague that we're dealing with across the country, this horrible plague of sex offenders, and the Democrats that want to not only help them get out of jail, help keep them out of jail, but also wants to treat them better and give them more rights than we on the right. It's unacceptable, completely unacceptable. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a great morning, evening, afternoon, and I'll see you on the next segment. Bye.